Hey, I'm Ben, joined here today with Dustin, Clayton, and Aaron, and we are firmly rooted.
So Clayton, getting a little fasting going. Are you
Looking forward to pizza tonight?
Hold on, I needed to get the.
we're not started yet?
Oh,
Stop it.
No, we're started. We're good. I'm just.
okay.
I'm fasting, guys.
Oh,
Nice. Good one.
it's sackcloth and ashes.
Yeah.
Don't expect a whole lot from me.
Yeah.
So I thought you were intermittent fasting, but you're actually, like, how long have you been fasting?
Outermittent.
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 Nice.
So the only reason why I'm comfortable talking about this at all with you guys and knowing that this is going to be hitting the public sphere is because I'm not doing this for spiritual reasons. That's not my goal. That's not my motivation for fasting this time around. This is more of a health fast for the health of my body. It's going to help cleanse me of toxins and kind of help give my gut a break and lose some body fat. And so that's my purpose. Now, will I still benefit spiritually? Yes, but when you fast, you're not supposed to, declare it to everybody. Look at me. Look how spiritual I am.
Right.
Look how I'm way up here. I fast, every
how
quarter.
good I look.
Whatever, right? Like that's so. Please, no one at the table and no one listening or watching, judge me in that way. Just know that this is something that is recommended by a lot of health professionals that you do for your body, and it has a lot of health benefits. There's dangers to it too, so don't do it unless you have done your research and you've talked to your physician and all those things. But today's Friday. Yeah, today's Friday, and I don't have a goal. I mean, I kind of have like gray area goals. One of my goals is related to the scale. Another goal is related to my reflection. Because again, I'm trying to shed some body fat.
For the beach.
For the beach. I'm going on vacation.
Yeah, you're going to go on vacation and break your fast there. Like,
Yeah.
It's not going to ease in with the salad.
So, yeah, I'll gain some back, but I'm trying to get a jump start on some health stuff. And there are benefits, even though this is physically motivated. There are spiritual benefits because you're reminded of your own discipline. You're reminded of your willpower to say no. And if we were fasting for spiritual reasons, we might have the purpose for fasting to be for prayer, for situations or for people, which I'm doing. I am praying for specific people during this fast as well. But sometimes when you fast, you are trying to teach yourself something, right? Maybe it's related to some sin, and if you can say no to the basic need of putting food in your mouth that your body demands, then you realize, man, if I can say no to that. Imagine what other temptations, what other urges I can learn to say no to. So, anyways.
I've been doing that intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Ben, you've been doing that too.
Yeah.
It's definitely, agree with what you said, but yeah, just in terms of like the health benefits too. I think one of them is like you can straighten out your hormones basically. And especially for men, like the natural growth hormone, and then like your pituitary gland, like, is affected positively by just not always having your food digest or have your body digest food.
Right.
So,
or have your body digest your body.
yeah,
Which is hopefully what's happening to me here
hopefully
soon.
what's happening. Exactly. That's what I need too.
Some cases like me probably wouldn't want that.
Yeah, exactly. You need more food, and that's why you need a wife.
Yeah.
Noise.
Yeah. 2 sandwiches a day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's my life.
Or the closest fast food.
Yeah, exactly. Burger King coupon sitting in the car.
Just get the app.
I do.
There's some good deals
I
on
have
there.
coupons and the app.
Believe me, I know.
I do not like Burger King.
Really?
Burger King.
Oh,
You avoid it, huh?
good.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, you're going to kind of rein us in here, get us going on our topic. And this is all one we're excited to talk about.
Well, there's one question that for those of you that might not know, we actually got a Instagram and Facebook set up, and obviously YouTube if you're watching that right now. But there was a while ago I put up a question, and somebody close to me asked, what is the difference between loving God and not wanting to go to hell, or having a fear of hell? I think. And I can't really assume exactly where that question's coming from. Maybe it was just something that maybe he thought other people might benefit from. I might benefit from it. I always benefit from any discussion that's any topic that's discussed. But yeah, does anybody really have a good way to branch off of that? Like, what is a good balance between those two things? What is a good balance between wanting to love God and to obey Him because you love Him, or are you obeying Him because you don't want to end up in hell?
Okay. Yeah. It's something that probably we've all thought about before. And I think it's a great question. And the way I guess the way I think about it is that I rephrase the question to this: what motivates you to follow God, to obey God? Do you obey God, Ben, because you love Him and He's your Father and you want Him to be proud of you? Or, Dustin, do you obey God because you're afraid of His punishment? You're afraid of being sent to hell? Or, yeah, I'll say it that way. I will say it that way. I know that we could even talk about, does God send people to hell? Really, it's your choice to go to hell or not.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just the way it came out.
Gotcha.
So it's sort of like what is your motivation to obey God? Is it because I want to avoid pain, or is it because I love my Father?
Yeah, I think just for me, at least, like coming to, I guess, I talk about my path or path to maturity. And for me, just realizing like, this is beneficial. I need to do this. Like you said, I need to obey. It's been said. There's many points there about that, about, needing to obey. I think, though, something that really struck me eventually on my walk was, you do need to be afraid. There is something there, that should strike a healthy fear in you. And if you're not afraid, you're probably it might cause you a little complacency, in my mind. I mean, at least for me too, like realizing that it's a little bit more of a motivation. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that they're both valid, right? I mean, they're both discussed at length in the Bible. I guess for me, I would say both, right? I certainly don't want to go to hell. I don't think I need to say that, right? That it sounds terrible. But at the same time, I do love God, and I do want Him to be proud of my meager attempts to please Him. Not that I could actually do anything that's like He's going to be like, "Wow, that was great," but like He knows how small I am, and I want to do my best to be pleasing to Him. But I think that these motivators are there for a variety of reasons. I think all people respond to both. In any relationship, not just with God, but like with parents, you see the same thing. And it does kind of change over time as the relationship develops and matures, and the individuals in the relationship develop and mature. But even like within from person A to person B, you're going to see a difference in like what motivates them to please God. There are those who respond very well to negative reinforcement, and there's people who respond really well to positive reinforcement. And I think I respond better to, not that I respond bad to either one, but like if you want to see me like grow faster, like negative reinforcement is kind of like the language that I understand. You know what I mean? I said that he's my boss.
I know. And just thinking about the fasting thing, like, motivation to look good. Yes. And like have, like you said, like, like I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of myself. But
Early morning affirmations are important.
yeah, exactly.
Nice.
But also just like being unhealthy and like, I need to take this seriously because, my life matters and I don't want to get sick and die from just being fat and not taking care of my body.
At like 60 years old.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's do a couple more minutes here of this, our intro here.
Yeah. So when you're talking to people, presenting the gospel, presenting the truth about sin and about redemption and God's love and his sacrifice, does your message change depending on who you're talking to? What I mean is, would you bring up more of the consequences to people who are like on the fence and dragging their feet, or people that are like new Christians, but they're still, entrapped in a life of sin? Like, would you sort of point out more of the verses that talk about fear, compared to someone that is, maybe a little bit more mature? They've been in Christianity longer, and I'm not dealing right now with, with pretenses or with appearances. People might appear like they're holy, but they're not. I'm not dealing with any of that right now. It's more that like the relationship has changed. So like if they're hitting a low part in their life, like how are you encouraging them? Are you encouraging them with like the promises of God and of his grace and the more positive side of things? Because they have this relationship. To me, I think that is true for me. And maybe if you guys want to answer my question, that's fine. If not, I'm answering it too. That I think with people that are showing more faltering nature, people that are struggling, they do need to be reminded of God's grace and his love, but they also, I believe, need to hear the consequence side. And if you disagree with me, if you're listening, you're like, man, where's the love, Clayton? Where's the grace, Clayton? Go back and read your New Testament. What is mostly the letters of Paul about? I mean, so much you could boil them down to him warning people to be faithful, to remain faithful,
Right.
and presenting problems that, hey, if you continue this path, you're going to have problems in the end with God. So I'm not giving you a message that lacks grace, that lacks love. I'm giving you what I believe is a balanced version. And depending on who I'm talking to, I might try to motivate them more with the verses that talk about God being a vengeful God, God being a consuming fire, God being a jealous God, versus someone else that just needs encouragement to keep on keeping on, and to have them set their sights on heaven, and to help encourage them with, man, he's promised all these things for you. Keep going. Don't give it up.
Mm-hmm. So good. Let's take a break.
Before we continue our show, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor. Ace of Diamonds Painting is based out of Longmont, Colorado, and is servicing the northern Denver area. Head on over to aceofdiamondspainting.com to schedule your free estimate, and make sure you mention Firmly Rooted during your estimate to receive $400 off any job over $4,000. Ace of Diamonds Painting. We make your home sparkle.
And we're back. And so, Ben, I just want you to talk about, you brought up a great point about this, and I just think there's some beautiful imagery there. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of going straight into it.
We could have spent a lot of time developing like the conclusion, right? But instead, we're just going to, it's a balancing act is really what the answer is. There's an amount of fear that should be present. There's an amount of love that needs to be present. And the balancing is going to change as maturity takes place, or maturing takes place, I should say. And there's a lot of relationships that God has established that we should have on earth that are a shadow, an image of the relationship that we have with him. God is the creator of the marriage relationship, right? And we see him use that relationship as an example to our relationship to Jesus, right? Or another powerful one is the family that God designed is the same image that we see with the church. We're brothers and sisters in Christ. Another one, and this is probably one of the bigger ones, is the parent-child relationship. The relationship that we as children have with our parents, or as parents with our kids, is an image or a type of the relationship that we have with God. We call the Father for a reason, right? He is our Father. Even if we were brought to him through adoption, we are his children. When you think about what motivates a child to obey their parents, that answer is going to change based on their age. And this is assuming that good parents are involved, right? There's going to be exceptions to this because not everyone is a good parent. But assuming that the parent is diligent and loving, this is what it's going to look like. Typically, the child at a young age will do what they're told when they don't want to do it, because that's when obedience is demonstrated, is when you don't want to do it, right? They're going to do what their parents say because they are afraid of punishment, whatever it may be. So there's fear that's motivating them. But then as they get older, that's going to change a little bit. It's going to be more of there's going to be still some fear present, sure, but it's going to be more of or it should be more of I want to be pleasing to my parents. And why is it that this changes? It's because as the child grows, they develop a relationship with that parent. They begin to get to know them better, and they like them. They love them. They appreciate the things that the parent does for them. Because if kids are, and I'm kids of any age, are paying attention and they can understand what's going on, they'll realize that their parents do a lot more for them than they do for their parents, right? And I think that's exactly how it is with us. I'm just going to use myself. I think my parents were really good. And my mom isn't with us anymore, but my dad is someone that is still alive and well, and he's very much in my life, and I love him greatly, and I want to be pleasing to him. And it's not like, he's going around bossing me around, but like if he wanted me to do something, I would gladly do it for him. Why? Because I love him. And is there an element of fear there? There was certainly whenever I was a little kid, but like now, you guys know my dad. I'm bigger than he is. I am willing to bet I'm stronger than he is. There's a part of me that's
words.
still afraid of him.
He can throw a football way better than you.
He can, and I cannot.
And he's right-handed.
I cannot beat the guy in tennis to save my life.
Nice.
But there's a part of me that's still somewhat afraid. But even though that fear is still somewhat present, it might just be, I guess, residual from when I was little. That sounds like he was abusive. He wasn't. But
No, Daddy.
he wasn't at all. Why is it that I want to be pleasing to my dad? Just because I love him. So I have a relationship with him, but also I'm able to understand more deeply what love even is and what it demands of me, right? And that's the same thing with God. Initially, a lot of people come to a saving relationship with Jesus because they don't want to go to hell. And I have no problem with that.
Aaron's losing it over here. He can't get the no daddy out of his head.
No, I wasn't thinking about that. At first I was laughing, and then I got rid of it. And then I look over to Dustin, and he's like trying to keep it in really hard. I'm sorry, guys. Please continue.
All right. I don't even remember where I left off.
Something about
Christians, initially become Christians because there are warnings about hell, right? Well, you read through the New Testament, if you're not saved by Jesus, you're going to go to hell. And of course, no one wants that. So there is a fear that's motivating them. And even in the Old Testament, there's times where God dealt very harshly with some people and used that to get the attention of other people who maybe were going in the wrong direction also. They see that and they're like, oh, he's serious. I need to get back on track because I don't want to be struck down. If there's an eternal concept here, I don't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
Right? The fear of the Lord is a very major theme in both Testaments, right? And we need to keep that in mind. But after becoming a Christian and becoming more familiar with his word, it's not like that fear ever completely goes away, but that stops being the main motivator. What it really is I know God better now. I don't know him completely, but I know him better now. And I can see a little bit more of what he does for me and how I could never do enough to say thank you to him, but I'm going to try.
Right. Yeah.
And so my goal now is to be pleasing to him and share his love with other people so that they too can have the fear kind of cast out and have a deep, loving relationship where the love isn't only God saving them from hell, but it's also, God, I love you and I want to live with you forever. Mm-hmm. Right?
That's awesome. Let me share a verse from 1 John chapter 4. a lot of love in John's writing. 1 John chapter 4. I'll read, starting in verse 15. Whoever confesses that Jesus is the Son of God, God abides in him, and he in God. We have come to know and have believed the love which God has for us. God is love, and the one who abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. Now, when he says we've come to know love, up in some verses above this, it says that we understand love because God first loved us and sent his son to be the propitiation for us. So in the act of sending Jesus, God was demonstrating his love. But in verse 17, it says, by this love is perfected with us so that we may have confidence in the day of judgment, because as he is, so also are we in this world. There is, verse 18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear of judgment, because fear involves punishment, and the one who fears is not perfected in love. And so the sort of the ideal, right, the spiritually mature person is being perfected by the love of God. And as that happens, the fear of being punished by God is diminished. And in this verse even says it's cast out because of God's love. And I think this verse is a picture of what Ben was talking about. That maybe at the beginning of your relationship with God, a motivation for obeying him was, I don't want to go to hell. Mm-hmm. But as you learn the love of God and appreciate the love of God and start to seek to please God, then you're thinking less and less about, I'm motivated by my fear of hell. Mm-hmm. And I'm motivated more by, I want to live a life that demonstrates my gratitude for all that I've received.
Yeah, exactly. I was just kind of thinking here, the more that we get to know God, the more we understand the promises and the gift that he's given us. I think it was John chapter 3, chapter 5, maybe. I might be mixing them up, but God so loved the world that he gave his only son, not willing for anyone to perish. If you have a son or a daughter, or I might even go here, if you have a pet, even,
or a plant,
if you're Kirsten,
Or
my
a
sister.
gong.
All right. Is there any kind of circumstance that you would willingly give that up? I think, if we actually love our pet, or if we love, Ben, your new father, you have a son, would you ever give up your son for anybody that is an enemy to you? Somebody that just came into your house, for an example, and stole something?
No.
That's pretty,
Honestly.
I mean, I'd have to find the chapter and the verse in the book, but, it was in Romans, and God told us, Paul was saying that even while we were enemies, God still sacrificed his son for us. And if you understand that, you will never fully understand how that may feel. Jesus went through so much pain and agony, mentally and physically, and he still willingly sacrificed himself, and God still willingly sacrificed his son, only begotten son.
Yeah, that's Romans 5, 6 through basically 10.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It certainly is incredible.
Would you be able to read that real quick? Sorry, Clayton.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Yeah. For while we were still helpless, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. For one will hardly die for a righteous man, though perhaps for the good man someone would even dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Mm-hmm. Much more then, having now been justified by his blood, we shall be saved from the wrath of God through him. For if while we were enemies we were reconciled to God through the death of his Son, much more, having been reconciled, we shall be saved by his life.
I think when we first become Christians, we understand God gave His Son. That's a huge thing. Just the fact that He gave His Son, and for someone that was, for us who are extremely unworthy, somebody that does not deserve to be with Him at all. I mean, we were enemies towards Him. We were sinners. We do not deserve anything close to that. We deserve to have gone through what Jesus went through. We should have been on that cross. Anyway, to get back, I keep losing my train of thought. It's
Bless you.
Did that help?
it's just amazing. Yeah, thank you. Whoa, wow, it's all back. Anyway, it's amazing to think that God wants us. He wants us to go and be with Him. He wants us to love Him. He loves us so much, and it's the more mature we get. Like what Ben was saying, the more mature we get, the more we understand that, and the more we understand His love, and the more we more perfectly put in that fear that we have for Him into our lives in a healthy way.
Beautiful. Let's take
Yep.
a break. Before we continue our episode, we'd like to thank you for joining our discussion today. And please, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to tell us below in the comments. Message us on Facebook or send us an email, which you can find in the description. And we would love to interact with you and basically chat with you. All right, we're back. And so, Clayton, I kind of cut you off there. So jump right back in there, big guy.
Okay. I just was thinking about something Ben said earlier, and I guess I don't know why this is in my mind. It might have been because I saw some like anniversary celebrations on social media, but it's the concept that, when you get married, it's I love you, 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 I love you. And you do love each other, but you have no idea the depth of love that develops over the years.
Right.
And when you're first married, it's like, man, I love you so much, bro. I love you so much. But you think like, how could I ever love you more? But you do. And that love develops and grows deeper and deeper and deeper. And so the point I'm making is that we experience that with God. And so, we are saying that our motivation for obeying God should be because we want to please Him. But it should also be because we don't want to go to hell. And the Bible uses both of those. And so we're trying to present both of those as being valid motivations. But ideally, assuming transformation in our minds, assuming that we're no longer being conformed to the world, but we're being renewed day by day, being born again, right? As people that are no longer slaves to sin, the ideal situation is that we continually sin less and less and less, and that our motivation is, I'm really struggling with the vocab. If the motivation at the beginning is I don't want to go to hell, great. But over time, that should be, is overshadowed a good word? It should be supplanted. It should be, the growth, I'm sorry guys, this is terrible.
You're doing fine.
Over time, as we mature and are transformed, our motivations should shift more towards, I love you, God, and I am so thankful, right? And so I'm responding to you. My whole life is basically a thank you. I'm sacrificing, right? Maybe what my desire, my inner secret desires want, because I need to put that to death and live like Jesus in the world, right? So
I'm doing this because I love you.
that's right.
Yeah.
But don't forget that I believe that the Old Testament began with an object lesson about to instill fear, and the New Testament began. And let's do the New Testament first. And when we jump back to the Old Testament, I think I want Dustin or someone to read from Exodus. But real quick, in Acts chapter 5, you have the account of Ananias and Sapphira lying about how much they sold their property for. They could have, it was theirs. Peter says it was yours to have. Like, you could have done whatever you wanted to, but they pretended that they gave all of the money to the apostles to be used by the church. So they're lying to God, they're lying to the Holy Spirit, and they're struck dead. And look at verse 5 if you're looking at it. Acts 5:5. And as he heard these words, Ananias fell down and breathed his last, and great fear came over all who heard of it. Now, if you keep reading, it says his wife comes in, and she hadn't known what had happened to her husband Ananias. And Peter says in verse 8, "Tell me whether you sold the land for such and such a price." And she said, "Yes, that was the price." Then Peter said to her, "Why is it that you have agreed together to put the Spirit of the Lord to the test? Behold, the feet of those who have buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out as well." And immediately she fell at his feet and breathed her last. And the young men came in and found her dead, and they carried her out and buried her beside her husband. Look at verse 11. And great fear came over the whole church and over all who heard of these things. This is when the church the kingdom, right, is relatively fresh, and you have this moment of people not treating the Lord as holy, right, not approaching him with the right mindset, with the right attitude, with the right heart. And so there's this very severe consequence that affects everybody. Wow. And do you think that it would be appropriate to insert "and great respect fell over the whole church"? And no, fear. Now, I do have a problem with people who dilute the concept in the Bible of the fear of the Lord down to just respect. Now, I do sometimes in some contexts, reverence is probably the better word. And like in Ephesians 5, when it talks about husbands and wives, I don't believe wives should be in fear of their husbands. It probably is more better to understand that as respect. So in the semantic range of a word, yeah, in that word, you can have those translations. But in this case, it is fear, shaking in your boots, fear of God. We better not disobey him, because look at the consequences. Look what happened to Ananias and Sapphira. And that happened at the beginning of the church. Now, I mentioned wanting to jump into the Old Testament and sort of share some things there as well. There were lots of reasons, lots of events that took place that instilled fear into people as God was working among them and shepherding his people. If we're talking about like an event that's similar to Ananias and Sapphira, we would have to say the parallel account would be Leviticus 10, when God puts to death Nadab and Abihu because they offered strange fire to the Lord. They were, sons of Aaron, priests of God, and we're not told exactly what they did. We're told that they offered strange fire. So, preachers say they flicked their bick. They offered fire in a way that God had said nothing about. They didn't follow the instructions. God kills them. And the lesson is, if you're going to approach me, you must approach me as a holy God. And you not following my directions shows that you're not approaching me, considering me, regarding me as holy. And so I connect Leviticus 10 and Acts 5 as being two demonstrations of the Lord to impact his people to you better obey. You better regard me as holy. But Dustin had pointed out something earlier from Exodus. And do you have that, brother?
Yeah. So do you just want me to start in 2018 and kind of read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and read on down.
Now when all the people saw the thunder and flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountains smoking, the people were afraid and trembled. And they stood far off and said to Moses, "You speak to us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak to us, lest we die." Moses said to the people, "Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be to his neighbor's property." Should I keep going?
I think maybe you skipped a line with your eyes.
Oh.
Read that again. "Do not be afraid, for God has come in order to test you, and in order that the fear of him
Maybe.
You see that? Yeah, may remain with you, so that you may not sin."
Oh, whoops. I had my
I was like,
Bible clamped together.
that's new.
Okay.
I flipped two.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
All
like,
right.
why does that say 9?
All right. That's
My
cool.
bad.
That's all right. But you see how there's something connected. There's a principle about having fear of God and not sinning. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like the thief on the cross saying to the other thief, like, "Don't you even fear God, since we're under the same condemnation?" Like there's a concept there. But what you just read from Exodus 20, the whole scene is the nation is at Sinai, and God is coming down on the mountain, and it's told us that there's trumpets blasting, there's there's lightning strikes and there's thunderclaps and there's smoke and that the mountain is shaking. And the people are just out of their minds afraid. Like if they touch, Moses, he tells Moses to warn the people, don't touch the mountain. Don't let an animal touch the mountain or it's going to die, right? It's holy. It's set apart. You better be set apart from the mountain. And the people are like, all that you say, we will do. But then all of this is the inauguration of the covenant, and God speaks to them the 10 Commandments. So again, God using fear to instill a sense of obedience in his people. It's a biblical concept. And although I guess I don't want anyone to think that we're, how did you say it, Ben? Making people feel bad?
Yeah, if you are feeling a fear of hell and that is motivating you to treat God as holy, you shouldn't feel bad about yourself. We're saying, I think proving from this that like a more mature relationship with God is going to show love as the main motivator, but I don't see a reason to rush yourself to feel a certain way. I think it's going to naturally occur, right? So like
Right.
if you're watching this, you're like, man, I'm just really immature, I guess, because I'm afraid of going to hell. Keep that fear alive and well if it's keeping you on the path that you should be on. And I really think that regarding God as holy really is what's at the center of this. He has demanded that he be treated a certain way, and we owe that to him, right? And we see, again, in both Old and New Testament, he expects his people to regard him as holy and to obey him. If what motivates me to obey him is fear, or if it's love, or if it's a combination, I'm still treating him as holy. And that's really what I should be focusing on, is just doing what he wants me to do, right? And I'm kind of transitioning out of specifically what Clayton was talking about, but like I see both of these motivators within myself. I do think that love has become more of a dominant one, but it's not like the fear is completely absent either. There are times when I am tempted to do something. I can't even think of anything specific right now.
Come on, Ben, tell us. What are your weaknesses?
Filling out brackets the wrong way. And sometimes, to my shame, it's not like the thing that keeps me from sinning is not God would be ashamed. It's this is going to send me on a path to hell. And I say to my shame because like I feel like I should care more about God's feelings in that moment than I do,
Right.
But both of these emotions are within me, and both of them work together to cause me to live my life or try to live my life in a way that's pleasing to Him. So it's good to have this balance within ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I was just thinking too, like think about like the way you live your life and the way it feels to you to live, to the best of your ability, like to be. You're more empowered, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, by just trying to strive to be the best. And like you said, like, make an impression that is lasting. You're gonna put that on your own heart. If that's what's true for you, like God already knows that. You're never gonna blow his mind. But if you can blow your own mind, right? Like your path is different than like, ooh, I'm always trying to avoid, the skulking corners of life. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a different way to live your life, if that makes sense.
Well, and it's a more enjoyable way to live your life
right.
too, right? Like, and that's another thing. Like, again, like we're not making the claim that it's inherently wrong to be afraid of hell, but like my life is just better not worrying about every single little thing I do cause me to go to hell, knowing that like I really do love God and I want to obey Him,
And his promises in the scriptures bear that out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, like from 1 John, like we have confidence
Yeah.
in that day because of the promises that he's made to us. And so many times in the New Testament, the authors make a point of saying God is faithful. Well, like, why are we being reminded that God is faithful? It's so that we continue to live the way he's asked us to. He's going to be faithful to reward us as he's spoken, as he's promised. He's not going to, go back on his word and say, just kidding, or I changed my mind. God is faithful. And so if we maintain the course, keep on keeping on, he's faithful to reward us with our inheritance with him in heaven.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time to take a break, fellas.
All right.
All right. right, we're back. And so just wanted to kind of clarify, for the audience, and what we're not trying to do here is, strike terror in the audience, right? And so kind of like I was saying, like, not living your life in the shadows, not like worrying about just being afraid constantly, right? And Clayton, you were kind of going to speak to that.
Yeah, for sure. Because the message, of course, of Jesus is everything is hopeful about the future, and there's excitement, and there's grace and love and forgiveness. And so those are some of the
Light burden.
Right.
There you go. And we don't want anyone to feel like we are saying that if you're not walking around terrified of God and terrified of messing up, then you're doing Christianity wrong. That's not what we're saying at all. One metaphor that I have actually included in a sermon before was using a table saw. And when I was new to using a table saw, I was afraid of the thing. Mm-hmm. And because I had seen and I've known what table saws do to people, due to a number of people every year in our country, people losing digits.
I'm
right?
not messing around.
Yeah, that's right. People that live their life without 10 fingers anymore. But as I learned to use the tool, that fear went away. It diminished, right? Like being terrified, like actually scared of using the machine, to being more like, all right, I'm not terrified of it anymore, but I know that I have to keep my wits about me. I know that I have to practice the techniques and the right discipline to use this tool. So in other words, it's like I have a healthy respect for it, a healthy fear, where it's not terror anymore. It's more like, all right, this is how I can use it and everything will be fine. And in fact, like we can make some really beautiful pieces of furniture and do some great woodworking, and there's a lot of joy in it and excitement as I use the tool now. But there's always a level of, but if I do this, the consequence is going to be awful.
Right.
It's just like a gun.
Yeah, and like just guardrails, like you're saying, like if you know, like a racetrack, like imagine how fast those guys are driving and everything. Like for a normal person to just hop into a car and go, 300 miles an hour.
Die.
So
Yeah.
sorry,
Like,
man.
No, you're good. Just that fear, like it's the same thing with a gun. Like we hear stories all the time of people who lose that healthy respect for firearms, right? And sometimes people die, right? But
Yeah.
sorry, you just made me think. There's this one guy that I know. I haven't seen him in several years, but I had one of my guns. It was just sitting on a table, and like he wanted to see it, but he had obviously never handled a gun before. But he had a healthy fear for it, but it was like too much. He was like all like literally picked it up with his thumb and his finger because like
when you're
there's nothing in the chamber.
Changing Mattis's diapers.
Yeah, I still do that. But like they're like, why did he react like that? Because he wasn't familiar with it, but he understood the importance of respecting it and
Right.
fearing like the possible results of doing something wrong with it. So no,
Yeah.
sorry, it just made me think like that's something funny.
Yeah. So with all these metaphors, how you handle a gun, or if you're new to motorcycle riding, right? There's a lot of fear at the beginning, but then that also calms down as your skill and competence goes up. Using a table saw, right? My metaphor for using a table saw is pretty accurate to about how I live my life with God now. There's joy, right? There's peace, there's excitement, but there's always that thought that, hey, if I do ever decide to turn away from God, then I'm told by His Scripture that there's nothing for me except to expect of terrifying judgment with my God, and so that is the guardrail. That ought to be the guardrail. And I believe God is purposeful and intentional in setting up guardrails for us so that, we have peace and joy and love, and we bask in God's forgiveness and in His grace. But if we decide to shift gears in our life and start living for self and leave the narrow, difficult path for the wide, broad, easy path, it's going to end in our destruction. And so we're really communicating all of these things. We're communicating that in your relationship with God, there's times when your relationship will be defined by I'm following God because I love him and I want to please him. Sometimes your relationship will be, I love God and I have this healthy respect for him that, hey, I'm within the boundaries. I love God, but I also know not to go over there or over there. And then sometimes in your life, if you hit like a rock bottom moment and you're just sort of overcome with sin and you've developed a habit of sin, well, then you need the healthy terror of the Lord that the Israelites experienced at Sinai, or that the Hebrews writer is warning about, that, hey, if you continue willfully sinning, there's no sacrifice for your sins anymore. There's nothing but a fearful expectation of your judgment. So we're saying all of these things, but not one of these only is characteristic of an entire like Christian's life and in relationship with God.
Yeah.
Do you guys, I don't know, we've said a lot. I think we've accomplished our goals, but is there anything else that we want to end with related to this message today that, hey, are we motivated by we don't want to go to hell, or are we motivated by our love for God?
Yeah, I can go ahead and end. I think that for me personally, I run into that problem where, oh, I better not do that, or I might go to hell, or, God's going to look down at me. I struggle with that a lot, actually. We need to understand that when we do mess up, that God is there for us. He is rooting for us. He is not willing for anyone to perish, but for all to have eternal life. And if you are struggling, if anybody's struggling, we need to seek help. That is something that is so important. We have elders and more mature Christians, or fellow brothers and sisters, family members. Maybe your family members might not be a part of that Christian life that you're in, but seek somebody that you can trust, that you can open yourself up to, open your feelings to, and ask for help from them and pray constantly. I think that's so important because God loves us. He's going to listen to you. If you are truly seeking, if you might think that you are fearing him more than you're loving him, just pray and know that he's listening and that he wants to hear you. You're seeking to do the right thing. You're afraid because you might be fearing. You might be afraid because you're fearing more than you might think you should. But God will instill that love because God is love.
Yeah. He wants you to be perfected by it. Beautiful, man. Thank you. And that's our podcast.
There we go.
All right, guys, that's the end of the show today. Thanks for being with us, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Hey, this is Clayton, and thank you for listening to our podcast. If you will, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and tap or click on that little bell on the right to be notified when a new episode is released. And while you're at it, we'd love for you to join our community on Facebook and Instagram. All you have to do is follow the links below. Again, thank you for listening, and have a great week. Peace.